Hi, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
No problem. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I've been a gigantic fan of yours for so long, and it's great to finally be able to talk to you for the first time and be able to talk about some amazing new music coming out on the 18th.
Yes, I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Oh yeah, and fortunately, I'm one of the select people who have been able to check out the amazing new album from Fear Factory, Continuum, and I just listened to it again before I reached out to you, and I just love everything that's going on here. Everything I love about Fear Factory in one album, and being able to expand the sound, whether it's more symphonic, whether it's more brutal, whether it's just got some really catchy choruses where you don't need to go over the top on it. I mean, just everything I love about it is here, and it's great to see that in 2021.
Yeah, well, we always try to push the boundaries of stuff that we create. We always try to top each record, bring in new elements, bring in new ideas, or just writing just amazing songs in general. We really put a lot into it. And obviously, the struggle that it took just to get this record out. So it's very liberating that it's finally going to be able to come out, and I'm just excited for everyone to hear it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many trials and tribulations to being a musician in general, being in a band in general, and, sometimes the greatest albums don't see the light of day ever. And it's so great to see that, despite everything, that this is coming out, that people are getting the chance to be able to check out the single so far and seeing seeing the little taste of the album to look forward to on the 18th. And like I said, for myself, being a longtime fan, I mean, this is what I wanted from Fear Factory, and so much more that I didn't expect.
Well, when I came back into Fear Factory in 2009, I was like, it needed to be returned to form because, obviously they released 2 records without me. I believe one of the records was pretty good. The second one wasn't exactly that great. And when I came back, I was like, I need to bring that fire. I need to bring that intensity back. And that's exactly what I did. And I continued with it all the way up to now to the new record.
Oh, absolutely. And, in the midst of all that, too, I mean, you've been able to work with such amazing musicians, and you've had some amazing drummers along the way, too. I mean, everyone from Raymond to Gene, and now with Mike on the last few albums. I mean, I love seeing the progression of what he's been able to bring to Fear Factory and just what he's been able to do on this album, too. It really sounds like you're pushing him to his limits here, and it's just amazing to hear that.
Yeah, he's been with the band for the last 9.5 years, so he pretty much knows what I like and what I want, with also adding his own identity to the music as well. Definitely going back in 2020, going back and recording his live drums was definitely a plus on this record. Definitely added some energy that I felt that was much needed. Because I don't know if some people know, some people don't know, but previously recordings we had a drum machine. On this record we had a drum machine. That's how we started it. But back in 2020, when I was able to regain the rights to the trademark, I went back in and I recorded Mike Keller playing live drums, which definitely added to the intensity of the whole music.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, as great as drum machines can be, and they absolutely work for certain situations and styles of music where a live drummer just wouldn't have the same feel. With some music, you just need a live drummer to be able to add that intensity to it, and Fear Factory is one of those bands. And just like you were mentioning there, I mean, the fact that you were able to go back and re-record Mike and be able to add that real intensity that a real drummer can bring to it just really made all the songs that he was able to re-record just stand out so much more.
Yeah, I'm not exactly, against drum programming at all. I mean, we've done it before with a record called The Industrialist, but unfortunately, that record pretty much got cancel cultured by our fans. They just were not having the drum machine. They just were not into it. So I didn't want to make that same mistake again. So I decided to, get Mike Heller back on the kit to record, the live drums, definitely to add his own nuance to the music. And it definitely shows on this record.
Oh, definitely. So while I'm thinking about that as well, I mean, obviously when you're writing the music, you're writing the demos out, and you want to show Mike, for example, like what you want to be able to have on the album and have him be able to add his own spins to it. I mean, when you're working with a drum machine, I mean, how do you go about that? When you're writing about that? I mean, do you have like preconceived notions of what you want to do, or do you have the songs written out and then do the drums? Like, how do you do that?
It just comes in my head, man. I mean, it could be inspired from anything. But obviously, a lot of times, the majority of the time, it starts with the guitar and whatever pattern I'm going to be writing, and then that's where the drums come in. You know what I mean? And then you just build the song that way. It's pretty much how I do it. I don't. You know, for me, music is a tension and a release. You have to build up the tension with the intense riffing and drumming, syncopated as one. Like you're an industrial war machine fighting in a future battlefield, you know, against the machines or humans, depending on what side you're on. Then the beautiful melodic vocal parts are the release, the light at the end of the tunnel, the angelic hope that gives you confidence to keep going. And building the dynamics in the songs are very, very important. Right? And sometimes keyboards play a big part as well. Keyboards can be the icing on the cake because you can control the final outcome of where you want to take song. It could intensify certain elements or certain parts of the vocals, or just intensify the song, being like the song Recode, which is the first track on the record. That has a lot of keyboards in it, and it really elevates the song to a whole new level. You know what I mean?
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
That's the beauty of doing Fear Factory songs.
Yeah, it really is, and that's another thing that's just like always driven me towards the band is the dynamics that's always been shown throughout. I mean, obviously there's such a great brutal mechanical sound that can happen with it, but when you really show like the lows, the highs, the peaks, the valleys, when you really show off those dynamics and you're able to add something like the keyboards or symphonics on top of that, I mean, it can take moments that sound spectacular and just make them grow even bigger. And it's so great to see that that is in mind too, because when you want to be able to have those dynamics and make the songs the best that they can be, I mean, sometimes the sources do come from the keyboards, and it can just add so much to it.
Yeah, for instance, like the song Fuel Injected Suicide Machine. In the midsection, Bert comes in with this big melodic part, and then we added some like little like strings and like little distorted piano parts that really made the song, that part, even more emotional, or much more kind of like in a dark and a positive at the same time. Adding these two elements was great. You know, contrast to us is very big, you know, especially when it comes to the vocals, you know, the heavy verses, and that's the part that builds up, you know what I mean? Then you have these beautiful angelic choruses that come out, and it kind of like soothes everything out. You're like, oh, you know, it's like all the intensity that's built up, and then boom, it's just the release is this beautiful melodic choruses with these nice keyboards on it, and it just contrasts. It's really good, and that's, of course, the contrast is also the dynamics of the song as well. But, you know, all that definitely plays into a factor of how we write songs. You know, I never try to take any shortcuts when it comes to music. You know, I'm obsessed over the writing part, tones, the lyrics, production, the mixes, the art. I can see where my passion might maybe drive some people crazy, because you know, when it comes to creating music, you know, it's like I'm really engulfed in it. I demand a certain level of quality for FF, you know what I mean? And I can't handle putting something out that sounds bad. You know, I have certain standards that I like to keep with Fear Factory, and I believe that since I've come back, I've kept that certain standard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and I just hear that standard being able to grow with every album too. I mean, whether it's like the guitar tones, whether it's the overall production, whether it's the musicianship and the songwriting that's going on, I can feel that growth going on, especially since you've been able to come back. And that's what brings me back again about what I love about Aggression Continuum, because those dynamics, that growth of the band is continuing to go. And just like you were talking about, like with the dynamics, and you're able to have like the great heavy moments that are going on, and then having these choruses are absolutely beautiful. I mean, I think I'm having the right name. I apologize, I forgot the wrong one. Cognitive Dissonance is a great example of that, where it's just like it's so heavy throughout the riffing and the verses, but the chorus, it just like it feels so angelic that's going on, and like more simple guitars that are going on, and it feels so perfect to have that kind of dynamic contrast going on.
Well, you know, it's not just contrast, or it's not just dynamics in a song. It's in the whole record. Because I look at the record as a whole song, right? And where I sequence the songs on the album, very important. I sequence it like it's a fucking epic track. So, you know, you might hear, you know, Recode, where it just has the intro and it builds up, like boom, it explodes, and then and then Disruptor even explodes again, you know what I mean? And then you have the title track, Aggression Continuum, that explodes, and then it comes down a little bit with Purity, right? Double comes down, and that's the beauty of when I sequence these records is also the dynamics in the whole record as a whole. I look at all that.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up as well, too. I mean, I really do find the track listening to be so important. I mean, I'm still very much an album guy. I'm always going to be an album guy, and I love listening from start to finish and seeing how things together. I mean, whether it's all meant to flow together, whether it's a collection of songs, I want to know why the track list is the way that it is, and especially when it's something like Fear Factory and you're able to have everything flow together like one big epic track like you were talking about. I mean, the fact that it starts off with Recode and then it goes all the way through End of Line and the way that it ends like that. I mean, it feels like you're just on this amazing trip from start to finish and everything that's going along with there. I mean, it really does come off sounding like one gigantic epic track that I just want to keep going back to.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, you know, I always, when I'm sequencing an album, or just when I'm writing an album, sometimes there's the obvious song. Okay, that has to be the opening track. Right? And sometimes there's the obvious ending. Okay, that has to be the ending track. And it's what you do in between the bookends, you know, the end and the beginning and the end. It's what you do in between that really shapes the album. And, you know, it can be tricky sometimes, but sometimes it's pretty obvious. You know what I mean? Like when I was, albums like Obsolete, and that was a very tricky album too. But it's epic. I mean, the way we place the songs, you know what I mean? Sometimes I can actually, you know, go back and, like, for instance, this record, the reason why I even bring up Obsolete is Obsolete had those major dynamics through the whole album. And I kind of, like, modeled this record after that record when it came to placing songs.
You know, you mentioning that's like, I'm starting to realize that now when talking about Obsolete. Like, I'm thinking about it in my head and comparing it to that. It's like, I totally understand where you're coming from with that. Like, the more I think about it.
These are like details that I don't really tell much. I mean, these are like little details that I could, you know, we have such a vast body of music and just all these records that we can always reference to if we need to. You know what I mean? At least that's how I look at it. I can reference some of these great albums that I did and say, hey, you know, I did this during this record. Maybe I can apply that to something here. You know what I mean? So the past can definitely influence me in many ways, right? Past of what I've done. It's just the past of past influences. You know what I mean? Because you never stop learning, even if it's old music or it's new music, you never stop learning. That's just how I look at it. Like I said, like I have a vast body of music that I can go back and reference the stuff to if I need to. If I get stuck, you know what I mean? Or if I could be like, well, I kind of see this record being more like Obsolete. I kind of see this record being more like Mechanize, you know, and, you know, you can actually go back and you can actually master the record exactly how Mechanize was mastered or Obsolete was mastered, or any record demanufactured. You can actually copy the mastering. You can copy the EQ. You can copy the tones. You can do a lot of, right? But I always still try to push it further when it comes to tones, something new, something current, you know, or something groundbreaking. But I always try to add, you know, new elements to Fear Factory to try to keep it going. You know what I mean? And coming up in the future, there's going to be a lot more new elements, obviously, because, you know, we're going to be having a new singer, and that's going to definitely add something different to the record as well. To the new record, sorry. Newest future record. I want to make it clear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that's such a great way to be able to look at that too. I mean, you can go to the past and you're able to bring elements of that into the present and potentially in the future, and always constantly learning. And again, that's another thing I love about Fear Factory is no two albums sound the same. I mean, there might be elements that are going on, but it's never the exact same album. It's never just a replication of what's going on. I mean, it's always something new. There's always something different that's going on. And, you know, it's just like, that's what's got me really excited about what's going to be happening after this album. I mean, obviously, when touring picks back up for Fear Factory, when you're able to choose a new singer that's going to be able to be everything that you're looking for, it's like, I'm excited to see what's going to be in the next chapter of Fear Factory.
Correct. And one of the beauties about this record as well is that we had 5 different keyboard players. You know what I mean? And that is cool when you collab with other people because they kind of have a different perspective of how they hear a certain part or where a keyboard should be placed, you know, or what they place in that, you know, section. And, you know, we had Igor Kreshkov, who's in a band called Yes, Giuseppe Bassi, who's from Italy. He has his own production company called Dualized Dysfunction, great keyboard player, great guitar player too. We had a guy named Max Karen, who is also in a band called Once Human. He's a great keyboardist and great guitar player as well. And Damon Rayno and myself. And then of course we had the classic Reese Fulber came back for a song and a half on this record. So collaborating with all these different keyboardists definitely helped a lot, adding the different dynamics and just the different approaches on how they saw the song and added their elements to it. You know what I mean? That helped a lot. Yes, and for sure in the future records, I like to create a team around me. You know what I mean? A team of, Reese Fulber was always that fifth member, but he's got his solo career and he's doing really well. So, he's not always going to be available, but hopefully next album we'll be able to work, with him more. And, I love Andy Steep. Love the way Andy Steep mixes our records. Hopefully I'll get to use him for the next record. It's creating this team of people around you that, will help you make those records better. You know what I mean? Sure, I write the songs, write the riffs, write the beats, blah, 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 blah. Mike Keller's going to throw his 2 cents in there. All that stuff is great. But it's when you bring these outside guys that, that come in and add all the textures and all the different, sampled sounds and strings and so on and so on. And, obviously mastering, mixing, all that stuff, production, all that stuff makes for a great dream team. And I'm hoping that the next record I'll get to keep that team and do another one like that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And, it's just like there's no better feeling when you do finalize that team and it is everything that you're looking for. I mean, when you have people that have the same vision that you do, but they're able to add just the right amount of differences that you might not be looking for, that really makes the album even better than you think it can be, but still maintaining everything that you're looking for. And this is an amazing example of that, of what's going on here. I mean, with so many contributors and session musicians that are showing up on here, and then of course everyone behind the boards mixing and mastering, all of that stuff is so important to be able to create the best music experience possible in the recorded form. And just like I was saying before, whatever happens in the future when it comes to the next vocalist, I mean, being able to maintain that fire that's going on with the band right now, and then being able to collaborate with everyone to really make that sound. I mean, whether everyone's available or you're able to find the right people in other sources.
Yeah, and that's just how it is. I'm influenced by a lot of things. You know what I mean? I've been influenced by techno to industrial to electronic to thrash metal to extreme death metal. You know what I mean? I've been lucky that I was able to create a very distinctive sound that people like, not only just in the guitars, but just, how I approach what drums sound like, drum beats, patterns, and as well as keyboards and even helping out with vocals, the same thing. It's like there's a lot of work that goes into creating these records. You know what I mean? Sometimes it could be easy, sometimes it could be really hard. You know what I mean? That's just the beauty of creating music. That's just how it is.
Oh, for sure. So thinking about that, I mean, obviously there's a lot that happened in the background on this album. I mean, a lot of great ups with the final product. Of course, a lot of downs that happened too. But when you were actually starting to write for this album and you were looking for those specific tones and, the dynamics and everything that you're looking for, I mean, how was that process going into it? Like when you were trying to really contribute to the tones and everything that was going on?
Well, I first started out with my Kemper tones that I created with my old Marshalls. And then obviously, drum programming, Superior Drummer and other stuff that we use. It's really just about creating that bones, that bare bones guitar riff, drum beat, getting that down, right? So once we get that down, and, sometimes we like to get close to what we think the record's going to sound like, because it also inspires me too. Tone can definitely inspire you. If you have a bad tone, you're like, oh, I'm not really feeling this tone, but I'm really forcing myself to write something I like, right? When you have the right tone, it can really oh, this is comfortable, this sounds fucking ripping, this is crunchy as fuck. Yeah, hell yeah, I can get right into it and dig into those strings, fucking write some badass riffs. That's what I like to work from, the right tones that inspire me. So that's where I start. But obviously, Mike Keller comes in, adds his stuff, great. When he did, because I wrote everything on a drum machine and I performed to a drum machine, there was still some little different feel when Mike Heller did it, so I actually had to shift some guitars around during the editing just to fit his vibe better, you know what I mean? And I went back and I reamped the guitar tone with my Marshall JCM 800 that's modified by Mike Fort, which sounds killer. And I was very happy to be able to do that. It was bigger, it was rounder, I liked it. And that's pretty much how it starts with tone.
Oh, yeah. And, thinking about that again, too, when it comes to the drums, I mean, being a drummer myself and being able to work from drum machines or drum software to just listening to other drummers, I mean, it's great to be able to see what you're able to do, being able to work with both sides of that. So, I mean, whether it's something that you're coming up with and then being able to hear Mike transplant his ideas to it. So, whether it's adding different cymbals, adding different fills, whatever the case is, and, just being able to adapt to those situations. And again, that goes back into what you were talking about with like being able to have that perfect team. It's like, it might not be exactly what's going on in your mind, but it can fit perfectly with the band.
Yeah, well, on this record, if you notice, there's a lot of rolls on this record, and that's where Mike Heller comes in. He added a lot of rolls, because I'm like easy, one beat going into the next. Sometimes there's no changes, right? And I leave that up to the live drummer. But our engineer is an actual drummer as well. So his name is Damien Reynaud. He's our engineer producer on this record, and he's a great drums and fills. Obviously, his ideas are different than Mike's. Mike's are pretty intense, which I like on this record. I said, go for it. When he was recording drums, I go for it. Just don't change the beats too much, you know what I mean? Sure, add your flair to it. Of course he does, right? But those rolls, like one of the rolls that I really like right at the end of Rupture, going into the breakdown chorus, it's like, it has this roll, it's like,
oh yeah,
go right into this part. And it was like just an amazing roll, and yeah, that's one of my favorites on the record. And Mike actually said there's more rolls on the song Disruptor than there is on the whole Demanufacture. Which is true. There is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so great to hear that too. And again, it shows like the progression of the band and showing what really can work for an album. And just like being able to have that human experience too, with Mike being able to do all those kinds of roles that are going along with it. So, I mean, sometimes you wouldn't expect that from Fear Factory, and other times it's so unexpected and it works so perfect. And like you said, Disruptor's a great example of that.
Like if you go back to our early records, there's not a lot of rolls at all. And that's just with the style that we wanted. It was more of an industrial style. Because industrial bands didn't have guitar solos. They didn't have all these rolls. They didn't even have a real drummer, right? So, so if you go back to the record, like Demanufacture, there might be one roll or two rolls on the whole record. You know what I mean? There's hardly any. Obsolete, DG Mortal, all those tracks. That was just the style. It wasn't that Raymond couldn't play it. It wasn't because that I couldn't play guitar solos. We just wanted to create a certain sound and a certain style, and we wanted to eliminate those things, right? Then obviously, I was out of the group, and I went and did Divine Heresy, and I was jamming with a drummer named Tim Young, and Tim Young's a great, writes a lot of roles. So I started to, being out of the band, I was able to like get into other types of shit, other types of music, other types of styles that I wanted to. And one of those styles was not make a band that's like Fear Factory. But we added a lot more roles, there's guitar solos, all through Divine Heresy, blah, 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 blah. Coming back in 2009 or 2010 with Pete Hogan on drums, we added more roles. We added a couple of solos, blah, 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 you know what I mean? So slowly but surely I was building up to that. Then we got to the Industrialist where we didn't have a lot of that. We went kind of back more towards the industrial side, less rolls, and then coming back into Genexus with Mike Heller, adding more rolls, and then on this one now, just rolls everywhere. But it fits with the music. It doesn't sound out of place. We didn't lose our identity because we added this. As a matter of fact, we just added more to it.
Oh, yeah, and I was just going to say that, too. I mean, the absolute precision of the former albums are absolutely shown first and foremost throughout this album, but, again, just like being able to experiment more, whether it is with more rolls or fills or whatever the case is, it's just like being able to have that progression going out throughout the last decade. It's so cool to be able to see when a band is able to maintain that core sound and still progress and being able to learn and everything else like you were talking about before. It's just like seeing that progression of Fear Factory really maintaining strong and maintaining some of the best music, if not the best album that you guys have done so far with Aggression Continuum. And I'm so glad, to be able to see that here in 2021.
Well, thank you. I love all my records I've been on with Fear Factory. You know what I mean? I always felt like, since I've been back, the intensity has been back. There's that certain vibe, a certain anger element. There's still that beauty still there. You know what I mean? And just like the riffs came back. You know what I mean? So I'm very happy back with where I started, what I created way back in that night. You know what I mean? So. And, a lot of things that people don't know is that I was the one that basically brought everybody together. Saw Raymond, that's the guy I want to play with, right? He was a drummer. Boom. I was in a band, I was in a separate band with Bert. I was like, I need to get these two guys together, create something. Because I wanted to pick the best guys that I knew that were in local bands in LA, you know what I mean? So I got everybody together and we started Fear Factory. That's just how it started. And it was like kind of, I had this thing where I really wanted to create this particular sound. And I was like, telling Raymond, this is what we want to do, and he was on board, and I was telling Bert. So we kind of just progressed together, over the years. Turned out to be killer. We were able to come up with our own distinctive sound that people can relate to. I feel lucky to do what I get to do. I chose this as my life,
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, just the fact that you were able to culminate everything, being able to bring everyone together for Fear Factory, and just seeing what's happened over the course of all these decades, all these great albums. And, when you did leave the band and you were able to do so much work that was outside of that Fear Factory sound. I mean, whether it's Divine Heresy or Proheria or whatever you've been a part of, it's just incredible. Or and just yeah, I mean, there's so much great work that you've been a part of, and it's great to be able to see you again back here at Fear Factory after all these great albums that you've been a part of since you've gotten back. Continue to progress with the band, and again, Aggression Continuum coming out June 18th through Nuclear Blast. I absolutely love this album, and it's just been awesome to be able to talk to you about all of this. I mean, through your whole career, tones, everything to look forward to in the future. I can't wait to see where the decision goes when it comes to a new vocalist, when that time comes, and upcoming touring, being able to see you guys in Minnesota again. Just there's so much to look forward to in the Fear Factory machine, and I thank you so much to be able to take the time to be able to talk to me about all of it.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it. And if anybody out there still wants to pre-order the album, they can. They can go to fearfactory.com. They can get cassettes, CDs, vinyl, merchandise. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.